came across a communique from a councillor called Steve Edwards after a recent by-election, and I want to read you what he's putting in his communique to basically Labour supporters. So he says, "Thank you to everyone in Brockmore and Pensnet who held their nose and voted Labour yesterday in the election." And listen very, very carefully at some of the things he says, because we are seeing people now rising up against Starmer's principle.
Picture this. A small town councillor, Steve Edwards, stands up in a packed town hall. His voice shakes with emotion as he calls out the leader of his own party. Keir Starmer's attack on the working class is unjustifiable, he declares. Before we move on, I'd like to ask you a small favor. If you appreciate this content, please take a second to like this video and subscribe to the channel. Over 98% of you watch the videos without subscribing. It costs you nothing, but it makes a huge difference to us. So, did you click the subscribe button? Great, thank you so much. Now back to the video. The room falls silent. Has David just challenged Goliath? And more importantly, will Starmer's Labour survive this internal rebellion? Steve Edwards isn't your typical Labour councillor. Representing Brockmore and Pensnet, he's known for his fiery passion and unwavering commitment to working-class interests. But lately, Edwards has found himself at odds with his own party's leadership.
Keir Starmer's attack on the working class, our children, parents, grandparents, is unjustifiable. I hope that election results like this, Labour coming third, in a seat that only 6 months ago became one of our safest seats, will be the kick up the arse the National Labour Party needs. Good, honest councillors will lose their seats because of Keir Starmer's actions and his attack on working class people.
Particularly Keir Starmer. The tension between Edwards and Starmer came to a head following a recent by-election in Brockmore and Pensnet. Labour's performance was nothing short of disastrous. They plummeted from a commanding 64% of the vote just 6 months prior to a paltry 28.9%, finishing in an embarrassing third place. For Edwards and many local Labour supporters, this wasn't just a loss, it was a wake-up call. In the aftermath of the defeat, Edwards took to Facebook to voice his frustration. His words were raw, emotional, and unfiltered. The overriding message on the doorstep was anti-Starmer, and rightly so, he wrote. Starmer's attack on the working class is unjustifiable. He lied to us all to get elected and does not deserve to be leader of the Labour Party. Edwards's post struck a chord with local Labour members. Many saw it as a long overdue call-out of Starmer's leadership and a reflection of their own disillusionment. The councillor's words seemed to crystallise a growing sentiment that Starmer's centrist policies were alienating traditional Labour voters. The impact of Edwards's criticism rippled through the local Labour community. Supporters rallied behind him, seeing his outburst as a necessary challenge to the party's national strategy. But it also raised questions. How would Starmer respond to this internal rebellion? Would he address the concerns of grassroots members like Edwards or continue on his current path? As the dust settled, a broader picture emerged. The Brockmore and Pensnet result wasn't an isolated incident. Under Starmer's leadership, Labour has suffered a string of by-election losses, each one chipping away at the party's confidence and unity. Edwards' critique of Starmer has opened up a Pandora's box of questions about Labour's future. Is the party's shift towards the centre a necessary evil to win back power, or a betrayal of its core values? Are the concerns of local councillors like Edwards being ignored in pursuit of a national strategy? And crucially, can Labour reconcile these internal divisions before the next general election? Keir Starmer's political journey is a study in contrasts. Once a crusading human rights lawyer and director of public prosecutions, he now finds himself accused of betraying the very principles he once championed. This transformation from progressive advocate to centrist politician has left many Labour supporters scratching their heads. Starmer's strategy to steer Labour towards the centre isn't just about winning elections, it's about redefining the party's identity. He's betting that a more moderate approach will appeal to a broader swath of voters, particularly those who abandoned Labour in recent years. But this shift comes at a cost. Traditional Labour values, rooted in working-class solidarity and socialist ideals, are being sidelined in favour of a more pragmatic, some would say bland, centrism. The tension between Starmer's new direction and Labour's historical foundations is palpable. Local councillors like Steve Edwards aren't just grumbling, they're openly rebelling. Edwards's scathing critique of Starmer's attack on the working class reflects a deep-seated fear that Labour is losing touch with its core supporters. This internal strife presents a significant challenge for Starmer as he attempts to unite the party's various factions. Starmer himself has acknowledged the difficulty of this balancing act. After a series of by-election losses, he admitted that the experience forced him to double down on the changes he believes Labour needs. It's a risky strategy, one that could either reinvigorate the party or tear it apart. Interestingly, national polling data tells a different story from the local election results. Despite the string of by-election defeats, Labour maintains a lead over the Conservatives in nationwide surveys. This discrepancy raises intriguing questions about the disconnect between national sentiment and local voting patterns. Are voters differentiating between their views on Labour as a whole and their opinions on local candidates? As the next general election looms, the big question is whether Starmer's centrist gambit will pay off. Political experts are divided. Some argue that his pragmatic approach is necessary to win back voters in key swing constituencies. Others warn that by distancing himself from traditional Labour values, Starmer risks alienating the party's base and losing the enthusiasm needed to drive turnout. The battle for Labour's soul is far from over. With the political landscape becoming increasingly fragmented, Starmer faces the daunting task of crafting a message that can unite both long-time Labour supporters and potential new voters. As the party grapples with its identity crisis, one thing is clear: the outcome of this internal struggle will shape British politics for years to come. The clash between grassroots Labour and Starmer's leadership epitomizes a party at a crossroads. On one side, passionate local councillors like Steve Edwards fight to preserve Labour's working-class roots. On the other, Starmer's pragmatic centrism aims to broaden the party's appeal. This internal struggle raises a crucial question: can Labour reconcile its traditional values with the demands of modern electoral politics? The road ahead for Labour is fraught with challenges. As political analyst Luke Trill notes, the rapid drop in Keir Starmer's approval ratings and lack of honeymoon for this administration is so far being played out in these by-elections, with voters already showing a willingness to punish Labour. This sobering assessment underscores the precarious position Starmer finds himself in. Can he unite a fractured party and win back disillusioned voters before it's too late? The answer may well determine Labour's fate in the next general election and beyond.